Hello again and welcome to Video Notes for Chapter 10, Reconstruction. The Civil War has torn the United States apart and now it's time to build it back together. So let's get rocking and rolling. First things first, the indivisible United States of America has prevailed. That was Abraham Lincoln's belief that you can't divide the United States. We say it every day when we say, pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Point being, there's no way that the United States should be divided or can be divided, so says Abraham Lincoln. And that relates to his plan on Reconstruction. See, he says secession was illegal. That goes back to the United States not ever really being able to be divided. And because it was illegal, the Confederate governments in all those states, illegitimate. Think about, you're walking down the street and you hear some guy, some crazy guy yelling about this, yelling about that. You just ignore him. Well, that's what Lincoln says. Ignore those southern governments. The states never really left the Union. It was just these crazy people talking all this Confederate stuff. And all Reconstruction is what Abraham Lincoln believes, is just restoring the legitimate, loyal Southern governments, the real governments of the states which never really left. So as you can see, Lincoln isn't, really looking to punish the South. Lincoln's like, hey, I knew we were buds all along. Things just kind of got weird for a second. And that's why he comes up with what I call Lincoln's lenient Reconstruction. Lenient means gentle. Lenient means easy. In his second inaugural address, he says, with malice, malice means like hatred, towards none, with charity for all, to bind up our nation's wounds. Abraham Lincoln said only 10% of the states had, or of the people in each state had to be loyal to the Union for that state to come back to the Union. And he said, these southern states, they will have to accept the 13th Amendment, that being the end of slavery. But Lincoln's plan was very, very gentle. Unfortunately for the South, and unfortunately for Lincoln, it ends at Ford's Theater where he's assassinated by John Wilkes Booth. And once Lincoln is assassinated, that Lincoln's lenient Reconstruction plan is gone. There's going to be a new Reconstruction with different ideas. We'll never know how Lincoln's Reconstruction would have worked out because he was assassinated. With Lincoln gone, the radical Republicans take over. This is a name given for a couple of people in Congress who were Republicans and wanted to do two big things. One, they wanted to give full rights to African Americans, all these freed slaves, give them the right of citizenship, give them the right to vote. That's on one side. On the other side, they wanted to punish the South. If Lincoln wanted to be easy on the South, they wanted to be incredibly hard on the South. Let's start first with civil rights. The 13th Amendment gets passed. This is a huge one because it ends slavery. The great problem of our country is now officially gone with the 13th Amendment. The 13th Amendment says slavery is no more in the United States of America. The 14th Amendment gives full citizenship and equal protections of the law, meaning the law will protect all citizens. And who are these citizens, really? These free slaves and African Americans. African Americans are free and full citizens according to the 14th Amendment. The wording is interesting. It's like states cannot deny any person full rights of citizenship. It's going against states that would try to take away rights of African Americans. We're talking about deep South states, Mississippi, Alabama, South Carolina. All these former Confederate states would look to take away rights, but the 14th Amendment will not let them do that. So 13th is freeing the slaves, and 14 gives citizenship. 15 gives the right to vote, regardless of race, color, or previous condition of servitude. That means free African American men have the right to vote. So to review, it goes 13 free, 14 citizen, 15 vote. Remember it like this: free, citizens, vote. If you can remember free citizens vote, then you've got the 13th, 14th, and 15th Amendments. Now, we also said that the radical Republicans wanted to punish the South. What better to do than to put the military in the South? The former Confederacy was divided into 5 military districts, and Union soldiers, these former war veterans, were in charge of containing the South. Now, this was really good for the African Americans in the South because there was an army in place to guarantee their rights. If the army goes away, then those African Americans will lose that protection. But as you can see, the South is being punished. Well, what about Lincoln's vice president? If he died, there would be a new president, right? His name was Andrew Johnson. Andrew Johnson was Lincoln's vice president. He was from Tennessee, and that might explain something, if you go back to the 19th century, about what Andrew Johnson would have viewed the two things that we talked about with the radical Republicans. First, with freeing with African Americans, Andrew Johnson did not want to extend a lot of the rights, which the radical Republicans did, to African Americans. So he was not interested in the 14th Amendment. He was not interested in the 15th Amendment. Also, Andrew Johnson, like Lincoln, didn't want to punish the South. He was very against the Military Reconstruction Act, putting the military in the South. So he's totally the opposite of the radical Republicans, which is why he gets impeached. The radical Republicans impeach him for violating what was called the Tenure of Office Act. Basically, Andrew Johnson fired someone, and he was supposed to get permission from the radical Republicans first. He didn't get permission. He said, forget that law, you're fired, and then the radical Republicans impeached him. Remember, what does impeach mean? Well, it means the House of Representatives charge the president. Say, you've done something bad in office. We're going to charge you. And the Senate will decide if you're guilty. The Senate will convict or acquit. Acquit means to not convict. And Andrew Johnson, very, very close, but was acquitted by the Senate. So he did get impeached, but that doesn't mean you get kicked out of office. Because if the Senate convicts, well, then you get kicked off. But they did not convict Andrew Johnson. So, hey, presidency kind of ends, not so good, got impeached. But that makes sense because, like, Johnson's up here and the radical Republicans are here, and they just battle it out. With Johnson gone comes the man from the Civil War, the big war hero. Ulysses S. Grant becomes president of the United States. Ulysses S. Grant served as president for most of Reconstruction. 2/3 of Reconstruction, Grant was in charge. Two things. One, give free, full, total rights to African Americans. Grant was all about backing up these rights, supporting rights for freedmen. That's like the radical Republicans. Here's how he's the opposite. Ulysses S. Grant was against punishing the South, against a really punitive Reconstruction, which is what the radical Republicans were for. Grant's presidency will end in scandal, but you could say that as far as Reconstruction goes, his big contributions, his three big ones, is he was president the longest, he was for rights for freedmen, and he was against punishing the South. With Ulysses S. Grant gone, let's talk a little bit about the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court didn't help a lot with rights for free African Americans. The Supreme Court's decisions during the 1870s undercut, lessened the power of the 14th and 15th Amendments. And even later, there'll be a landmark case called Plessy versus Ferguson, which will legalize segregation. And the Supreme Court doesn't help out, doesn't come up with decisions to back up the 14th and 15th Amendment. Just the opposite. The Supreme Court will lessen the power of the 14th and 15th Amendment. Well, Reconstruction has to end, and it will end with the Compromise of 1877. The Compromise of 1877 ends Reconstruction. There was an election the year before, the election of 1876. And this guy, Rutherford B. Hayes, ran against a Democrat, and it was an incredibly close race, so close that the House of Representatives got to vote to break the tie. So when it went to the House, all kinds of Southerners helped Rutherford B. Hayes, a Northerner, win the presidency. Southern Democrats helped Northern Republicans. Well, why would they do that? Well, they did that because as soon as Rutherford B. Hayes became president, the Compromise of 1877 came out, which ended Reconstruction. They said, yeah, we'll vote for you, we'll make you president, but you've got to end this Reconstruction thing. Easiest way to end Reconstruction is to get the military out of the South, which is what happened. But when the military leaves, that means free African Americans, they don't have the backup that they did when the military was there. And once they leave, there's two long-term impacts of the end of Reconstruction. First, the former Confederates regain power. They regain power in governors, in congressmen, and senators, and in the House. In D.C., the former vice president of the Confederacy, he gets elected from the South and goes to D.C. to be a congressman. So former Confederates get power. Secondly, it opens up the door to the Jim Crow era, meaning that 14th Amendment, which gives you rights, citizenship, protection under the law, it'll be wiped away by laws of segregation, laws of hatred. But you could say, well, can't we stop this? Well, the military is not there anymore, and the Supreme Court sure isn't helping out. So Reconstruction ending, good to get the military out of the South. South is happy about that, but not all the South is happy because it's going to open up the door to the Jim Crow era. Hey, last person I want to talk about is Frederick Douglass. Frederick Douglass, the first time we met him, was as a slave in Maryland who ran away, got his freedom that way. 13th Amendment, he sees the end of slavery. He advocated for the passage and for the government to support the 14th and 15th Amendment, citizens vote. And then at the end of his life, he served as ambassador to Haiti. What a journey for Frederick Douglass. Born as a slave, born as a person whose society, Southern society, didn't value at all, and ends his life as ambassador for the United States. Frederick Douglass' journey ends, and so does ours for Reconstruction. Thank you for joining me.